Today's story, friends, from this wonderful book of Rabbi Twersky's childhood, he relates as follows. Story with the Maggid, the Mezritcher Maggid. During the lifetime of the Mezritcher Maggid, there were no evil decrees against Jews. An unusual phenomenon in the bitterly anti-Semitic Tsarist Russia. After the Maggid's death, however, the decrees recurred. So the Talmidei Maggid were perplexed. For the Gemara says that the tzaddikim have greater power in heaven after their death than during their lifetime on earth. So how is it then that during his lifetime the Maggid was able to ward off evil decrees with his prayers, but no longer to do so after his death? And this was very disturbing. So the Maggid, the Mezritcher Maggid, appeared in a dream to one of the Talmidim. This is what he said. You must know that God never does evil, but there are things which human perception interprets as evil, even though they're ultimately good. He brings a famous marshal. It's much like an unsophisticated person observing surgery. Not knowing anything about disease and healing, he may think that cutting open a human being is the height of torture and cruelty. However, one who understands that the surgeon is doing something essential for the person's survival, so the doctors and the nurses are angels of mercy, on the contrary, rather than murderers to the untrained, torturers to the untrained eye. Continued the Maggid. When I lived on earth, the Maggid said, and with my human eyes I perceived a given decree to be evil, I pray to Hashem to annul it. Now that I'm in a higher world where I'm permitted to see the ultimate good in everything, I cannot intercede to revoke that which I see as good. And he concluded, if you on earth perceive it as an evil, then you should pray for its revocation. End of story. Now, friends, I want to tell you, you're all familiar with this, I'm going to tell you anyway. It's not for us to speak about tzaddikim and what's happening in the higher worlds. But we do know what we know. And that is, you know the story that it's printed in the edited Likutei Sichos of Tavshim Tes 1989. With Shabbos Parshas Koirach was the end of the Farbrengen, exactly 5 years before Gimel Tammuz. That was the 5th of Tammuz then, but it's 5 years before Gimel Tammuz, which was Parshas Koirach. And the Rebbe said at the end of the Farbrengen, you know the story, the Rebbe said, this is most unusual. He told a story. He didn't tell stories in those days. He did in the early years, but very few in the later years. And what was more shocking to everybody, he smiled when he said it. We didn't smile by Farbrengen too much. And when we did, and he smiled to people, but not when he's talking. And this is what he said. He said there were tzaddikim that before they died, they said they're not going to go into Gan Eden, and they'll keep on. They will pound and demand that Mashiach comes, and will not go to Gan Eden until Mashiach comes. But they died, and Mashiach didn't come. So what happened? The tzaddikim down here explained, and here's one of the explanations. He's one of them. Many other answers, like they say about the Berditchev, he never didn't go to the detail. He was very bekitzer in the story. I'll just give you an illustration. The Berditchev, the tzaddik before him, I forgot what it was. The Berditchev said, you know what happened to him? He said, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, and he lost himself and jumped in to answer. He said, I'm not going to do that. I'm staying on the outside. So when he was nostalgic, Mashiach didn't come, so the next Rebbe said, oh, you know what happened to him? You're not coming in? No problem, we'll make Gan Eden bigger. Turns around, he's in Gan Eden. without explaining what this means. This is not physical, obviously. But they were seduced one way or another, and this is the core of it. The seduction is, you're getting the view of heaven here. So the Rebbe continued in the Sikha there, and he said that it seems that what's the solution? Can you imagine? What's the solution to not being seduced by heaven after you die? I mean, it's such shocking words. No one, we thought he was referring to his wife, the Rebbe who just passed away. No one, he's talking about himself. And it ended up being edited, like the Rebbe instructed to be in the edited, was published in the Allgemeine, like this, like really formal, with footnotes and everything. So what did the Eitzah the Rebbe said? The Eitzah is, there is a vow in halacha that you can never be released from. All vows can be released. If I understood, if I had known, I wouldn't have done it, then the vow is released. One is released from one's vow. But if you make a vow, al das rabim, contingent upon the entire community exempting me, you can never be exempt, never be released, because you need everybody to say, which is not possible. So you make it, that's what he said. Then he smiled when he said it, and it ended a few minutes later. And then it came Gimel Tammuz 5 years later. So the Rebbe seemed, to me, it seems that he was like halachically binding himself to our world, to his vow. But that's the Metzias. The Metzias, the reality is, he's not in the Maggid's place. The Rebbe is rattling heaven and rattling us and working with us and has not enjoyed a moment of paradise since Gimel Tammuz. What has he enjoyed? My mitzvah, your mitzvah, what we're doing to bring Mashiach. That, yeah, I would assume. But no reward. Not the reward, and you get the heavenly view, and it's all for good, and have patience, and it's all. No. No, because the kavanah of Atzmos did it betachtonim is did it betachtonim. The Maggid concluded, you see it's bad, you pray. He didn't mean to say, well, if it's a problem for you, then go ahead and pray. He was saying, no, you should pray. And by the Rebbe, it's even in heaven. He's rattling heaven. Heaven is complete, never happened. That Tzaddik comes to the Maila. The Lubavitcher Rebbe turned the world over. I'm not going to talk about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he's not going to Gan Eden. He's not going sitting with the Rambam and with Rashi that he explained. The more we speak, the worse it is. Not saying. For him, silence is his praise. Don't say a word. But he's not going to Gan Eden. So heaven is learning. Heaven is learning that, yes, mitzad the Giluyim, it's all good. But mitzad Atzmos, it's not. It is and it's not. And we have to change it and bring Mashiach. And a Jew's physical suffering for one moment is intolerable. Intolerable. Mitzad Atzmos. Not mitzad Gan Eden, not mitzad Elam Haba. Not mitzad Chaya Elam Haba, as we learned in the Maimon. But mitzad Atzmos, it's intolerable. And the Rebbe seems to be, he's bringing that to heaven. They're finding out one way or another. Just by the fact that he's not, hasn't entered the pearly gates, sitting with him and basking in the Ziv HaShechina. There's no interest in the Ziv HaShechina. He's interested, they should be good for Yid, and the Kavanah of Atzmos should be realized. This is what Mashiach is, friends. That's what this means. It never happened before because it wasn't supposed to happen before. Such a neshama came down at the end of a Golus in the Deir HaShvi to be Mamshech, the Shechina, the Ika Shechina, Atzmos Mahus Lamata. And his mission is not over, and it won't be over even then either. So the story is very illustrative. Makes us appreciate. If you on earth perceive its evil according, then you should pray revocation, for its revocation. This is our Rebbe here. So, it's a very, it's a difficult thought, difficult truth to bear, because, It's 25 years plus, and the Rebbe is still working harder than ever. Taka. It should motivate us, Achmanis, on me, on my neshama, on the Eibishter, on the Rebbe, and every Jew that's suffering. You don't have to look in heaven there. Just go next door, go to a hospital. Go next door, look at. So we have to be driven. At the same time, besimcha, it's not a stira. Adalo yada. It's not a stira. At the same time, to know that it's all good and will be good retroactively, it's all true. How do you reconcile this all neatly? There's no neat reconciliation. There isn't. There isn't. There isn't. And shouldn't be, and can't be, and never will be. It's broken and joyous. Friends, have a wonderful Shabbos. This is the Shabbos where we are cutting off Amalek. This is the Shabbos when we get the koyach to confront Amalek, as we're learning in the Maimer. And lo yigur chara, just get out of the way. If he still wants and needs me and one with him, I'm his Eved. And don't get in between. Don't distract me. He's forever going to be there till Mashiach comes. But we're getting closer and closer. Chassidus is revealed to his total annihilation, utterly. So we get the Koichas this Shabbos and Erev Shabbos. Meet with Mashiach without delay.
Rabbi, Yeshikoach, dear Rabbi. God bless you all. Shabbat Shalom.
Amen. All of us.
Thank you very much. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.